This is Robert Capuccio. Welcome to the Self-Help Antidote, a weekly dose of reason, perspective, and insight, where we challenge conventional thinking and explore authentic strategies and insights around personal transformation. Our commitment to you is to bring you some of the world's leading experts in the domains of fitness, wellness, coaching, and behavior change, separating fact from fallacy.
G'day, champs. It's Craig Anthony and Robert Capuccio. It's the U Project. It's the Self-Help Antidote. We're calling this is called a co-share. That's what the kids call it, Bobby.
Is that what the kids are calling it these days?
That is.
Is that like cohabitation? Or is that something different? I'm getting off track already.
It's a form of cohabitation. It's my podcast and your podcast cohabitating in two spaces. It's a convergence. And maybe it's also laziness, because it means that we can do one recording and get two podcasts, which I think is efficient.
No, it's efficiency. It's definitely not laziness. Why? Who said that? Did someone call us lazy?
So how are you? What is news? What is news with you? What is going on?
Just doing a lot of writing, a lot of content creation, correct? Just a lot of deadlines I'm working towards, because, I don't want people to be upset with me. Like that Capuccio, he dropped the ball.
When you said to me before we went live that you were joking, but you said I'm a people pleaser, so I don't like doing whatever it was. Is that true? Do you actually think you're a people pleaser, or were you just fucking around?
No, I struggle with that. I like to think, like, here's what I'm going to say, just because, people are listening to this, so it makes me look good. I like to say that I'm not defined by other people's opinions, but I am deeply affected by it, which I think to a certain degree is healthy. I mean, if you don't care about what anybody thinks, you're either delusional or you may be a sociopath, which statistically is unlikely. You just might not be 100% honest with yourself. But it really does affect me. I had a meeting with my boss early this morning for coffee, which she quickly regretted because I had a large coffee and it got a bit intense. But we were talking about, like, last year, I was struggling with just a couple of relationships where I was running around and trying to, I think, tell myself I'm here to serve these people. And I was trying not to disappoint them and just make them happy. And the goalpost kept moving. Like, okay, that's fine, but you didn't do that. And she's like, and you just like chase them around and constantly tried to recalibrate. And it's like, you lost yourself a little bit. And it took a toll on you. And it wasn't positive for them or for you, or, she's like, the organization was fine. Nothing happened. Nobody went to HR. Nobody quit. But she was like, probably wasn't the best approach. And I was like, I wonder why I do that.
I think there's two disparate things here regarding, like, one is, as per my research, having an insight and understanding into how people perceive and process and experience you, meta-perception. That's one. That's just like a kind of awareness. And then the other is anxiety, fear-driven, worrying about whether or not someone likes me or what they think of me, rather than one's like fear-driven, one's curiosity-driven, I think. And that, when I tell people about my research, that some, especially often dudes, are like, I don't give a fuck what people think of me. I'm just going to be me. And if they don't, I'm like, okay, well, good luck being a leader. Good luck having a team, and good luck being, part of something bigger than just you. So I think the distinction is for people to understand we're not coming from a place of fear and insecurity and self-doubt and anxiety, as in, do they like me? Please like me. But rather just that awareness of, like, I'm curious that what is it like for our audience listening to you and to me? What is that experience like? Because you and
painful, I would imagine. It's very painful.
I would imagine, right? But, the truth is, so you're a professional teacher, coach, mentor, speaker. Your job is to literally stand or sit, whatever the case or the situation, and talk to lots of people. Now, if you have no idea what that is like for them, you're, at very best, you're just guessing and flying by the seat of your pants, right?
people talk a lot about emotional intelligence and how critical it is to succeeding in collaborative endeavors, which is just about everything. And you could argue that. You could argue that where you are within the leadership hierarchy depends on, how much of an advantage or a detriment emotional intelligence is. That's a totally different conversation. But it's like when you ask yourself, what does it mean to be emotionally intelligent? It's the ability to be self-aware and other-aware. I'm aware of my own emotional state and perspective. And I'm also aware of the experiential emotional state of others. And I could regulate my thoughts, emotions, and behaviors based on that assessment, or based on the ability to calibrate all of those different things at once to kind of, it's almost the seed of empathy. I think you're right there. Is the influence that other people's opinion have of you, is it so that you can modify and adjust how it is you're engaging in the world? Or is it something where you are dependent on external validation, which everybody is to a degree. But if that's what's guiding you, I think it's very different than, okay, if I am a leader, if I am a writer, if I'm a speaker, what quintessentially is my purpose? Why do I do that? And if it is to make a contribution, if it is at some level to serve, you have to be sensitive and intentionally focused on how you're impacting people. Can I bring something up from a very personal conversation we had over a year ago?
Yeah, of course. Go.
Where you had said, you need to understand the experience of you.
Yeah.
And that hit me like I did like the ice water challenge a few years earlier than that. That statement hit me harder than a bucket of ice water. And because I know it's true. Like I know in relation to me, it's true. And it's like, did that feel good? No, it didn't. But like over time, when I sat with that, I was deeply grateful for it, because I think we need that from one another when it comes from a place of care, and we need to be open to that. Otherwise, we're not emotionally intelligent, and we can't collaborate with people. And if we can't do that, good luck doing anything.
Yeah, I think since I first met you, which is over 2 decades ago, and we've done stuff on and off over the years. It's funny because, especially for the guy who has no siblings, like I've always felt a little bit, not in a weird way, but like I always thought you were, and I'm not just saying this everyone to make him feel good. He knows this. Like I've always felt like you are, and you are very intelligent and very gifted and very capable. And so I'm always coming from a good place. And I've always been, or periodically been, perplexed at how little recognition you've got from some people now. And I think you should, it's just my opinion, got more recognition and, a few other things that we won't bang on about. But, when I say things like that to you, even though it's not what people want to hear necessarily, it's coming from a good place. And that is because, I want, if you don't understand or I don't understand what it is like being around you or around me, then how can we build optimal connection and rapport with others? And, like I've spent my life being not very good at things and then working to be better. Like there's been, other than maybe, I was going to say maybe, like naturally I'm a reasonably good communicator, but even that, there are so many parts of communication that I wasn't good at. And still am not, brilliant at. But I think that is one of the challenges of friendship too, is do I want them to tell me what I want to hear, or do I want them to truly give me feedback that might not be the most comfortable? And I remember that. And I remember I was conflicted because I felt, what did I feel? And I even sent you a message the other day. We won't say the totality of that message, right? I sent you a message and basically went, I think I fucked a few things up. and I'm sorry, and I love you, and that's it. And I think that for me, look at us, it's like fucking Dr. Phil here. But I just think that it is important in friendship to go, you know, I think I did well with that, or I think I fucked that up, and not like, oh, I fucked that up because you did this and then you did that. No, I got that thing wrong. Absolutely 100% me. And I think that being able to work through that stuff while still, you know, like my my litmus test for friendship is two things. One is my life better with this person in it? That's number one of my litmus friendship test. And the answer for that with you to me is yes. And the next one is, do you say nice things behind that person's back, and do they do the same? I'm like, well, I would think, I don't know about you, I hope so, but it's definitely me. And then I think, okay, then this is really worth working on. Yeah, we've gotten very deep very quick, but I think that's one of the challenges of, otherwise we're gonna live in this fucking echo chamber of kind of self-serving bullshit to an extent.
Yeah, I think relationships, I think when it comes to mental health and ultimately happiness, we've discussed this before. I think the pursuit of happiness is almost a guarantee that it will evade us for the rest of our lives. It's a horrible endeavor. I think it's an unavoidable consequence of engaging in things that are meaningful. I think meaning is the key, not happiness. But because of the depth of value that relationships have, I think it's the seat of mental health, or a critical component of mental health and happiness as well. And you said something about rapport, and rapport is critical to this. To me, rapport is a relationship of positive responsiveness, where you could be in response to one another and show up for that, even when, or probably especially when, it doesn't feel good. And it's really hard. You know, you'll hear people go, I was dating this person and it just wasn't right. And I moved on. And a lot of times if it's not right, move on. But it's like sometimes, you're two dynamic growing people. And if there's not that room for loving, ruthless honesty, I hate the word ruthless. I think that was the wrong word to use. But this kind of honesty that needs to take place, if you can't get past the ego, because we all have to contend with our ego, it kind of makes it hard to have long-term, sustainable, empowering relationships in our life. And I think, gratitude wasn't the only emotion I felt. Like there were times where I was like, I'm not going to say it on the podcast, but the thoughts in my head, I was quite pissed off and resentful. And then it's like, no, because I know there were times in my life where I wish somebody would have told me the truth. And it's kind of a contradiction, because as a coach, I'm always like, well, I don't tell people, I'll ask. But for me, I wished that they would have told me the truth, and they didn't think enough of me to tell me the truth. And like when someone I really care about, that I have a strong friendship with, tells me something, or when anybody does this, but it holds a lot more weight when there is this emotional intimacy. Is that true? Like, is that true? Yeah. Have I heard this before, or have I suspected I've noticed this pattern with me? So around the same time we had this conversation, I was told a lot of other things about myself from someone else. And I said, well, when have I ever heard this before? And the answer was, I have never heard this before, ever. This is the first time I've ever heard this from someone. I'm not taking this on board. What I heard from you, it's like, oh, not only have I heard it from someone, I didn't need to, I know it. It's like, God, all right, what is that impact that I'm having? And how do I move forward and be a little bit more self-aware, or what are the strategies that I can implement when I feel I'm getting into a point emotionally where self-awareness is lacking? I need some preemptive tools. Otherwise, I'm going to perpetuate being this person in situations.
And I think, like, I talk about this concept about being an unreasonable friend. And the unreasonable friend is someone that just tells you maybe what they think you need to hear, but maybe don't want to hear. And I think if that is genuinely someone that loves you and wants you to succeed, I think that's important. They actually really want you to succeed, and they don't want you to succeed because there's some upside for them. There's a benefit for them. No, it's selfless. I just want you to do well. You know, this is a funny thing, right? I don't even know if you know this, but so there's a guy over here called Sam Wood, and Sam used to work for me. Bobby's in the States, everyone, in case you hadn't figured that out by now. But Sam used to work for me, and Sam's killed it, crushed it. He went on a show called The Bachelor, which you have over there. He was The Bachelor, heaps of airtime. He started a business called 28. He's got a gym up. In fact, he's got what was my old gym now. That's called The Woodshed. But he's built this amazing brand and become very, very, very successful. And I reckon I get asked about once a month. So, what do you think of Sam Wood? You know, people like, what do you think of? And I think they're waiting for me to like say something critical, or because he's just gone on in leaps and bounds and he's a multimillionaire and he's in the media and he's just killing it. And I go, how fucking good is it? And they're like, what? And I go, yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. Like, he's killing it. And I'm genuinely happy for him. And people can't believe that. Now, of course, it depends what metrics you use. But if you just want to say commercial success, crushing me. And I'm like, I'm so happy that somebody that I worked with, somebody that actually originally worked for me, like, there's nothing in me that doesn't want him to succeed. And I don't actually understand. I mean, I theoretically understand it because I understand ego and I understand all the bullshit. But yeah, that genuinely being able to celebrate another person's success, even if you're not right now succeeding. Because if your friend's success bothers you, then you're not a friend. Mm-hmm. That's not friendship.
What you're saying about this guy, he sounds brilliant and driven, and he was on The Bachelor, so he's also probably very good looking. And, you know, you have to admit, someone like that, it does kind of help if they have some really fucked up personality flaw, or if they don't, like a body part that's grotesquely deformed. Like, he's got a couple of really jacked up toes, but nobody knows about it. I would find that a little bit helpful to reconcile.
Yeah, but he's annoyingly good looking, charismatic, charming, and pretty clever. So yeah, he's got the whole enchilada.
He sounds horrible, to be fair.
Oh dear. Hey, I wanted to ask you were talking before about like the interesting intersection of a couple of variables. One, you kind of said that you're probably less, but something of a people pleaser at times, which I think I have been at times as well. But also, you often operate in a position of leadership and coaching, and where you are giving people feedback and direction. How do you do that? How do you give people direction, feedback, input that they might not want to hear, while simultaneously not wanting to ruffle any metaphoric feathers?
I'm so glad you brought that up, because I think when we're talking about close friendships, there's a different dynamic. And for me in leadership, I feel like there's a responsibility for the people in your charge. And I know that most people have a level of reactance within their operating system. And it's almost like, if you don't want to move forward with people, or if you want people to continue doing a behavior that is damaging to themselves and others, tell them why they should stop doing it. Maybe give them some science, like a couple of references. Definitely tell them what you would do in that situation. And you're almost sure to perpetuate it. For me, in that situation, I try to ask questions. And first the step, because I had a conversation recently like this, and it's like, all right, you don't really have to do anything. Like, just because I'm your leader, or your quote unquote boss, which I don't feel I'm anyone's boss, but just because we're in that position within the organization, you don't have to do what I tell you to do. There are always other options. And you could passively resist too. Like, all right, yeah, got you, boss. But I'm going to either comply or defy as soon as you leave this room. But, if you were to do something else, let's say a behavior that I would feel is constructive for your position, for you, for the team, for the end user, what would be some of your reasons? And it might be none, but what would be some of your reasons why you would do it? What are some of the outcomes that, if it worked out, might be important to you? Out of those outcomes, is there one that is quintessentially most significant, and why that? Like how prepared and ready are you at this point to start working on that? Because just because you acknowledge that a change could be made and it might benefit me doesn't mean you're ready. It doesn't mean you're confident. Doesn't mean you're important. But when we talk about readiness, let's say it's like a 5 out of 10, I'm kind of like on the fence. I don't know. Why did you not say a 2? Right? Let's talk about the rationale between a 2 and a 5. Let's talk about that significance. If it were to move from a 5 to 6, what might need to happen? And without jumping all in, what might be an initial first step? And what do you think happens if you don't do it? So just like a coaching based conversation, there's a lot in between those. I mean, coaching is not about asking better questions. It's being in response to what happens after you ask that question. But if you were going to frame it like that, I prefer to have conversations like that for a lot of reasons. One, even where I sit in the hierarchy within the organization, I'm nobody to tell somebody what to do. I'm trying to bring the best out of you and serve you, right? Kind of like, I don't work for you. It's like, you don't work for me as much as I work for you. So that's first and foremost. Second, if someone doesn't have emotional ownership and accountability over the responses, don't expect long-term change. Telling people what to do or what their problem is, like you said earlier, like, oh, this is like Dr. Phil, maybe on an emotional level, but if it was Dr. Phil, we would be asking each other 2 or 3 questions. I'd figure out exactly what's wrong with you, and I'd tell you what to do. And that would 99% of the time do absolutely nothing but reinforce the behavior patterns that we're trying to alleviate or eliminate. So I try to handle, and there's a great book called It's the Manager, written by Clifton and Harper, 2 consultants and researchers out of Gallup. And they said that 70% of the variance of all performance productivity in any organization is your frontline manager. So it's like, oh, my team sucks. They don't execute that. You know what? The odds are overwhelming that if you're the manager, it ain't your team, mate. It's you. So, and one of the recommendations that they give on how to kind of turn this around in an organization, the biggest recommendation is switch from boss to coach. Because I think, this goes back to Douglas McGregor in decades ago in the human side of enterprise, where coming out of the Industrial Revolution, it was kind of like, people are lazy. They'll get away with shit if you let them. You need command, you need control, you need assembly lines and checks and balances. And, people are basically tools, like a hammer, and, a screwdriver. And Douglas McGregor in his research said, no, people only behave like that when they don't feel that they have the tools, the agency, or the autonomy. When people feel that they're being controlled, yes, they resort to that. But when people understand and internalize the purpose of their work, they feel they have the agency to perform it and the autonomy to pursue it, they seek out responsibility. They seek out growth. They seek out greater work ethic. So that's a misconception. I think it's a lot of times the way we deal with people and the assumptions that we have that bleed out onto them that kind of creates patterns of behavior that reinforce and internalize our own false beliefs about people are, you know?
Yeah. It's so funny that the archaic thinking and operating systems of businesses, not that long ago, 10, 20 years ago, and maybe even some now, but I saw wasn't a documentary, but I saw a story on a TV show over here. It was like a 15-minute story on this tech business. And then this tech startup that this guy and this lady created, people kind of work when they want, and it's like, well, if you want to start at 7 a.m., cool. If you want to start at lunchtime, cool. Want to bring your dog? No worries. Want to sit on the floor in a beanbag with a laptop? Yep. Want to wear bare feet? No worries, as long as you're clean. It's like there are so few rules. I mean, they've got to obviously do their job. But other than that, don't punch anyone in the face. Don't eat all the cookies. Wipe your feet.
You're just sucking the fun out of the workday, Craig.
Yeah. Yeah. I was watching that and I was thinking, oh my God, this is, it's not actually the job I want, but if I was a computer programmer or a creative in that space or a whatever, I'm like, that is the joint. Oh, they are the people I want to work with. That is the place. And they interviewed the staff and they're like, no, this is not a show for the cameras. This is how it is. And, one of the ladies was there and she had her, I don't know, like an 18-month-old there where she's like, I couldn't get a babysitter today or whatever. So, and everyone's like, cool, just handing the kid around and, off to it. And I'm like, yeah, imagine that. Imagine creating a space where people really want to be. It's not like you're going to work because you've got to go to work and you've got to go to work and drive there and sit in your cubicle and look at your watch and go, oh, fuck, it's nearly lunchtime. And then, oh, it's nearly home time. And then, oh, God, I'm finished. Thank God. Like genuinely, they're either the best actors of all time or that it's just they've created a culture and a physical space and a kind of a mindset that people love to be in. And since they've done that, I mean, they kind of started that way, but they expanded more. Yeah, productivity, efficiency, profit, everything through the roof. Happiness, like culture, awesome. I'm like, yeah, we could all maybe, depending on the business, of course, but maybe rethink some of the stuff that we've been doing traditionally.
Absolutely. I think the more you lay down control and infringe upon autonomy, the more you're self-generating problems that you believe exist, again, because of some innate attributes you suspect people have. And there's been so much research on, I mean, just drawing off the top of my head, Thomas Allen from MIT, Gallup, of course, does an amazing job at compiling an extraordinary amount of high quality data. You've got Google in their own internal research on what separates our top performing teams, which is just about everyone. It's a very high pressure environment, from the absolute best of the best. And it comes down to the same things over and over. 1, psychological safety. 2, vulnerability. 3, an organization driven on purpose. And if you want people to work longer hours and harder, don't make demands about you got to be at your cubicle for this number of hours a day, because they'll clock in and clock out exactly when you tell them to. And then they're checked out and they don't really care. People will work longer and harder when they have the freedom to autonomously decide how they engage with work. Now, of course, you have meetings, or if you owned a gym, I'm a personal trainer. Yeah, you got to be here when your clients are here. So you have a shift. That makes sense. And I have mixed opinions about working remote versus working in the office. I think whenever someone says, no, you have to be in the office, or no, all work can be done remotely, it's like, I think there's somewhere in the middle. I think we're missing a few variables. This is not an open conversation, but for the most part, the more you try to control people, the more you get exactly what you're managing. It's just good business.
Also, but also think about, it's like, a carb's good or bad? What, well, for who? Which carbs? What situation? Are they an endurance athlete? Are they a bodybuilder? Are they a corporate dude who wants to lose a few pounds? I mean, it's like a dumb question, which is like, oh, is remote better or is in the office better? Well, for who? What's the job? What's the situation? What's their role? What's their personality? Like, does it give them anxiety leaving home? Does it, like I think with many of these variables and many of these kind of conversations around what is better, well, there is no single answer to that because there are too many variables. It's like, well, like my job, I have not had an employer since I was 25 years old. Well, that was 36 years ago. I haven't had an actual job. I haven't had holiday pay or sick pay for 3.5 decades. For the last 3.5 decades, every month I'm earning a different amount of money. There's probably no month where I earn exactly the same money. Some months are good, some months are shit, some months are terrifying, some months are like amazing, right? But I would not recommend what I do to most people because most people's personality or situation would not be suited to this, or it wouldn't be suited to them,
Absolutely. I want to refer to a couple of past episodes on the You Project, if I can. I mean, for the listeners, I know you know what you were talking about. But I think our last episode, which was 8019, Mel sent me the file. Forgive me if that's wrong, but I'm sure that was a great episode too. So go listen to that. We were talking about why do people need so much consensus and absolutely have to agree with each other. I think historically, when people feel under threat and the world is changing so rapidly, people feel a level of anxiety, or I know a lot of people that I work with in multiple industries are voicing this. You kind of had to know that people in the tribe thought a certain way and behaved a certain way. Like if we're going out and we're hunting some giant animal, and if somebody screws up, like someone's going to get trampled and none of us are going to eat and we're going to starve. It's like, I need to know that when we say go this way, you're going to go this way and not go the other way. So it's kind of like if you're doing shit and saying shit in the tribe that's just like way out there, God, you're not predictable. You're a threat. And I think that kind of probably is embedded a little bit in our DNA. The other side of that is if we don't recognize that, we don't really have the dynamic complexity and diversity of opinions and expertise that we need to innovate and move forward in an organization. Yeah. And you cannot have these soundbite beliefs. Are carbs good or are they bad, right? Should I open up my own business? Should I be an entrepreneur? Because entrepreneur good, employee bad. Oh my God, there's a lot of context and probably biological and psychological individuality. You interviewed Susan Sly, who I've known for decades, and I was on her show and my dog had just died. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to cancel the show, but I was wrecked on that show. And she had said, when you're getting into your own business, what's the most important thing to consider? And, I wasn't thinking at all. And I just responded with brutal honesty. I was like, shit, it's not an inspiring answer, but know what the hell you're getting into and who your partners are. Because there are some things, I've had a few businesses, and I learned there are some things that I'm really, really good at. And there are some things where it's almost satirical how bad I am. And it's like, if you don't have the right partners with complementary skill sets, I know for me, like I'm capital F, 3 letters after that, it's bad. You really got to have that level of self-awareness.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, business partnerships in general they're tricky, and I mean, I've had a few business partners and they all started out good. They didn't all end bad. In fact, none of them ended terribly. But yeah, like things change. People change. People's priorities change over time. And what you originally had, sometimes that disappears and you go, okay, I think it's like trying to navigate the ever shifting landscape of pretty much everything. It's like what used to work for me professionally when I was in my 20s didn't really float my boat in my 30s. There was a time like you when you were on the gym floor and you were working in gyms and inspiring and training and educating and selling and all that stuff that you did. And there was a time there, I'm sure, where you fucking loved it and you got a sense of self-worth and all the stuff. Same with me. The ex-fat kid, now he's training people. Wow, like he's not fat anymore. I got self-esteem and self-worth and recognition and acceptance and love. And this is amazing. And then 5 years later, yeah, this is pretty good. And then 5 years later, yeah, it's all right. And then eventually it's like, no, I'm over this. And it's not bad. It's just that this doesn't work for me anymore. I need to do other things other ways. I need to learn new stuff. I need to talk to different people about different things. And I need to evolve. And I've been living in this kind of box for a decade or so, and something else has to happen now,
I think that's a positive sign. It's like Ralph Waldo Emerson said that a foolish consistency is the hobgoblin of little minds. It's like just because you changed and you're not thinking and being the same person you were 10 years ago, it's not inconsistency. I think it's one of the most prominent signs of interpersonal growth. Like you've done. Yeah. I think when you do well, you outgrow things because as you deepen your expertise, you see more. You can form more distinctions, and those distinctions uncover new motivations and passions and paths. And it's beautiful. It's beautiful to see that when you're working with people or people on your team. I don't know if we see that as much with ourselves, or maybe we do, and I'm just talking shit. What do I know? Anyway.
Not at all. I mean, this is going to sound totally cheesy, and I don't always live up to this, but I feel like when I was younger, it wasn't all about the getting, but I was a fair bit about what am I getting? I'm getting recognition, I'm getting acceptance, I'm getting money, I'm getting a bigger business, I'm getting profile. It was really, I wanted to help people, but I was probably wanted to help myself the most. And then I got to a point, which a lot of people do, where I was, moderately successful. And you're like, well, I'm way more successful than I was in that I'm earning more dough and I'm doing all these good things and I've got a house and I own a couple of things. And you're like, yeah, but I'm not any happier. What is that about? Not necessarily one causes the other. Maybe they're disparate variables, but I think they're intertwined somehow for most people. So for me, it was like the getting phase, and then it was like the who am I becoming phase, not what am I getting, and then it was like the what am I giving phase. It's like the getting and the becoming and the giving, and they're still all intertwined somewhat, but I'm not, even though I make okay money, I'm not driven by money. It doesn't excite me. It's not it used to be my KPI. It's not anymore. It's like, yeah, I've got to pay the bills and look after mum and dad a bit and, put bloody petrol in the car and all those things. But yeah, it's things just shift. Like what is wealth kind of shifts.
Yeah. Well, what do you think creates that shift? Is it maturity? Is it security, like financial or emotional? I have a little bit like what drives that evolution? Because it's common, not with everybody, but with a large enough amount of people that you can kind of see that trajectory. What do you think's behind it?
Yeah, good question. So I think the thing, the whole money doesn't make you happy. Yeah, I get that, but it kind of does if you got no money. Yeah, people with money say that, right? But then people with no money, all of a sudden they've got money. Well, this is pretty fucking great. So as you and I have said before, there's a correlation and to a certain point. But I think beyond that, when I was young, I was literally, I used to work 6 days a week in a gym and 3 or 4 nights a week in pubs, getting punched in the face for $12 an hour, making, like I worked 70, 80 hours and earned not a lot of money. So I worked very hard for a long time, making not lots of dough. So I definitely didn't come from any kind of privilege or upper class, right? I just grinded. And I'm glad I did, because it gave me context and awareness, right? But then I think for me, when I got to a point where I went, well, now I'm comfortable and now I own things, it was just an awareness thing that while none of this is bad and I'm very grateful for what I have, money isn't my purpose. You know, it's like, oh, this is just a tool and a resource that's pretty good to have, but it's not my reason for getting out of bed. It's not who I am. And then I think, well, also at the same time, these things don't need to operate in isolation. It's not like, oh, I need to try and be commercially successful, or I need to be the Dalai Lama. Like, I can have for want of a better term, a loving, kind, spiritual component to my existence, but also being a guy who charges that company lots of dough to go and talk. They can afford it. I'm not bad at it. I've done it a lot. That's my commercial value in that space. This is what I'm charging. That's what you're paying me. Thanks very much. See you next time. It's all good. But also happy to talk to that person that doesn't have any dough, and, you know, not every person every time, of course, because there's a number of hours in a day, but, you know, where there are things that I've done some gigs for organizations where they literally can't afford to pay a speaker, and I just, you know, I volunteer my time and gladly. And some of those have been the best things I've ever done, where you're driving 2 hours, you're talking to 70 people in a tennis club, and it's like, it's so not glamorous, and you get paid $0, and it's fucking amazing. You know, that's some of the things that light me on fire.
I would love to do that. When talking about that, I'm like, yeah, that sounds like a fun day, but I don't know anything about tennis. What am I going to say? You know, I think, I don't think money does make you happy, because I know a lot of people, we both do, that are like obscenely wealthy. Some of them are happy as a pig in shit. Other people are just perpetually miserable. But I do believe that a lack of money definitely makes you unhappy. You know, I mean, Maslow's hierarchy of human needs is pretty flawed. I mean, it was, you know, done studying a bunch of middle-aged white guys in mid-20th century US, and, you know, which one of how those needs are met and how they show up is different culturally. But the idea that, you know, if one need is glaringly unmet, it kind of doesn't allow space for the other needs to manifest. There's some truth to that. You know, if I'm homeless and I'm starving, I'm not really thinking about my legacy. I'm not thinking about how I'm going to connect with an audience and like contribute at my workplace. I don't have a workplace. What I'm thinking about is I need to find food. How am I going to make that happen? So it's those kind of things. And it's not just the money. I think it's poverty on any emotional level. And I don't want to dismiss how crushing poverty is, because I think it's something like 98% of anyone who grows up within a certain postal code and within a socioeconomic status stays there. And I doubt that 98% are just unmotivated and fucked up. So I do think resources available to you matter way more than most people would admit. But what if I also have like an emotional level of deprivation where I don't really have confidence? I've not been out in the world. I have passions, but I don't know what I'm capable of. And then it's like, oh, you know what? I do make a difference. I am making a contribution. Shit, you know, this is not about me. You know, I could take my focus off of me and put it increasingly on other things and other people that transcend my own immediate needs, because I feel secure enough to do that.
Yeah. I was talking to we've got to wind up, but I was talking to somebody else the other day, and we were talking about the fact that, you know, in a world of 8 billion people, 2 billion people can't walk up to a tap and get some water. You know, they can't turn a tap on, get a glass of water or fill a kettle or or have a shower, have a bath, 2 billion people, 25% of the world's population don't have access to food whenever they want it. It's probably more than that. But like there are so, yeah, I mean, I can't talk for everyone listening to this, of course, but I, for one, I'm so grateful and also like a tiny bit guilty. It's like I was born in Australia, which is what is it? It's like 0.03% of the world's population, some tiny amount. It's like statistically to be born in Australia is a 1 in 300. That's what it is. 1 in 300 to be born in a place where, for me anyway, I had loving parents. I went to good schools. I never had to, there was no hardship, and I didn't deserve any of that. I didn't deserve any of it. I was just lucky. I was just lucky to have the parents I had, to be born in this place I was, and it's like, yeah, but like a lot of people do not, and I know without opening a door, we don't want it, but you didn't have that. You had some struggles, which we'll talk about and have spoken about, but another day. But yeah, it's like a lot of people start, as you said, 98% of people who are born in a certain postcode or postal or area code, as whatever zip code, as you call it over there, whatever. Yeah. And that's just where they were born. And that's just their starting point, which is, there's no fairness to any of that.
God, there's so much I want to say. I know we got to wrap up, so I'll make this short. But yeah, you're right. I was growing up in interesting circumstances, as many people do. And, I was having this conversation with my boss earlier today, who's an extraordinary woman. I mean, she's probably one of the most extraordinary people I know. And I was saying, because we are working within multiple industries that are pretty shaken up right now for a lot of different reasons. Yeah. I feel so lucky and grateful that I can make a contribution that hopefully makes people's lives a little bit less painful, more resilient, and more engaging. And very happy that I'm sitting where I'm sitting within the organization. But I don't feel guilty at all. I feel zero guilt that other people can't get water. And, I was lucky enough to be born into the United States, because you cannot help anyone who's suffering by suffering with them at their depth. Like, I think the person who started turning my life around was Mitchell Pacifico, the owner of Gold's Gym. Imagine if Mitch didn't have a gym and, like, I don't know, he was serving time at the moment and his life was horrible. Would have never impacted me. So my life would have been dramatically different. He was in a position to help me, and he was willing. And I think, there's Emmons and McCullough, they've done some great research on gratitude. But I think tying it back to what you said about rapport earlier, one of the most powerful mechanisms of gratitude is when you're feeling it, you express it. And what that does for people, and how they react to you, and what that does for social bonds and ties is beautiful. And I think a lot of it is transcendent. So it's like, I've been working on living just for today, because I'm a very anxious person. I'm always thinking about the future and looking back in the past, which can be constructive, but too much of that, not at all. And it's like, okay, what can I do today? I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, but we've got over 100,000 people that are depending on us today. What can I do just to contribute and move the needle today? And it's keeping me kind of focused.
Yeah. Well, you're doing a good job. I mean, you're doing a good job despite that feedback from Craig Harper a year ago.
Thank you, mate. So are you. I appreciate that. And I appreciate the comment a year ago.
Thanks, buddy. You look after you, mate. And I think we're skipping next week because we're both interstate, or we're both doing stuff, but I'll see you in 2 weeks.
For work. See you in 2 weeks.
Yeah, we'll talk soon.
Bye, everybody. Bye, Craig.
Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Visit us at theselfhelpantidote.com to share your feedback, insights, and recommendations on what topics you'd like us to explore in the future.